When I saw that cloud of dust tearing across the road, I felt that something was wrong. The countryside doesn't make that kind of noise for no reason. I tightened Trueno's reins and moved forward a few meters. Then I saw it. A white horse was running completely out of control, its eyes wild, foam spilling from its mouth. Tied to the saddle with a thick rope, a woman was being dragged along the ground. Her body slammed against the stones. Her arms reached out for help into empty air. Her mouth opened in a scream the wind swallowed whole. That wasn't an accident. That was cruelty. My wife had died 3 years earlier. 3 years since the house turned into silence. 3 years in which I merely existed, without truly living. Her name was Elena. She died during a childbirth that went wrong. The baby died too. Two small coffins that I carried alone to the town cemetery. No one came to help me. No one knew what to say, and neither did I. I just buried them, went back to the ranch, and kept going. After that, I learned that pain doesn't need words. It lives in the chest, grows slowly, and becomes a companion. Waking up turns into a habit. Work becomes an escape. Sleep becomes rest for a tired soul. The ranch was big, but it was empty. The cattle wandered scattered across the pastures. An old fence I repaired myself. The chicken coop gave eggs every day, but I ate without appetite. Everything worked. Everything breathed. Except me. I saddled Trueno early that morning. He was a strong bay horse, dark-coated, shining under the sun. I bought him young, right after Elena died. Back then I thought an animal's company was better than people's, and I never regretted it. Trueno asked nothing, demanded nothing, never looked at me with pity. He simply walked with me. I mounted and followed the dirt road that cut through the ranch. I was heading to check the far pasture where the cattle often strayed near the river. The heat was already pressing by mid-morning, dust rising with every step of the horse. A weak wind carrying the smell of dry brush and hot earth. I wasn't thinking about anything. I was just going on. Life had become that, going on without a destination, without hurry, without reason. I passed the old gate, went down the slope where the fence leaned crooked, crossed the dry stream bed that only filled after heavy rain. Everything empty, everything still. Just me, the horse, and the sun weighing down on my back. That was when I heard it. A different sound, distant, like thunder coming from far away. But it wasn't thunder. It was a fast, desperate gallop. I pulled the reins and Trueno stopped. I tilted my head and listened more closely. The rumble was growing, coming from the main road, the one that crossed the region and led to the town of San Juan de las Piedras, 20 kilometers away. No one traveled that road at that hour. There was no reason, no people, but the sound was there, and it was getting closer. I turned Trueno and spurred him on. My heart, long dormant, began to pound hard. I don't know why. Maybe instinct, maybe fear. Maybe that feeling you get when you know something is wrong, even if you don't yet know what. I reached the bend in the road and saw it. A cloud of dust ripping through the air, hooves pounding the ground. And in the middle of it all, a white horse running wild, as if fleeing from hell itself. I narrowed my eyes. Something was wrong. The horse wasn't loose. It had a saddle, and tied to that saddle, dragged along the ground like a rag, was a woman. My blood ran cold. She slammed against the stones, her body rolling to the side, her arms stretching out, trying to grab onto something. But there was nothing. Her mouth opened in a scream I couldn't hear, because the wind and the dust devoured everything. And farther back, standing like a statue at the edge of the road, there was a tall, thin man, his hat pulled low. He didn't run. He didn't shout. He did nothing. He just watched, like someone waiting for the end, like someone letting death do its work. My breathing stopped. My whole body trembled. I had already lost everything. I had already buried the ones I loved. I had cried alone until there were no tears left. After Elena died in my arms, squeezing my hand and asking me to take care of our child, who died as well, I had sworn I would never feel anything again. But there, in that instant, watching that woman being dragged toward death, something inside me woke up. It wasn't rage. It wasn't fear. It was something else, something ancient, something I believed had died along with Elena. It was the will to save. I drove my spurs hard into Trueno. "Hold on," I shouted, knowing she couldn't hear me. The horse burst forward, the ground trembling beneath us. Dust filled my eyes, my mouth, but I didn't slow down. Trueno knew my desperation. He felt it, and he ran like never before. The woman was barely moving now. Her body was giving out. The rope that bound her to the white horse's saddle was taut, cutting into her wrist, blood soaking it. The horse ran blind with fear, without direction, driven only by the need to escape. I had to reach him fast. I pulled alongside him. The wind sliced through everything, the thunder of hooves drowning all sound. I stretched out my arm, trying to grab the white horse's reins, but he veered away in panic. Stop! Damn it, stop! I shouted. Nothing. I glanced back. The man was still standing there, motionless, expressionless, as if none of this concerned him. Anger surged through me, but there was no time for anger. There was only time to act. I pushed Trueno farther ahead, nearly pressing against the white horse. Below us, the woman moaned, her face smeared with blood and dirt, her eyes half closed, almost unconscious. I took a deep breath, held the reins tight with one hand, and with the other I lunged. I caught the rope. The jolt nearly tore me from the saddle. Trueno neighed, but he held his pace. I gripped tight, pulling hard, trying to slow the white horse. He fought back, lunged to the side, but I didn't let go. Easy, easy, I murmured, more to myself than to the animal. Little by little, the horse began to tire. The gallop faltered, slowed to a trot, then to a walk, and finally he stopped. I leapt from Trueno before he came to a full halt and ran to the woman. She lay on the ground, barely breathing, her eyes half open, her face covered in cuts, her dress torn, her hands ruined. I knelt beside her. Miss, look at me, I said, gently holding her face. She opened her eyes slowly, wet, frightened, confused. She tried to speak, but her voice broke. Easy, you're alive. You're safe with me now. I cut the rope with the knife at my belt. Her wrist was purple, bleeding. I pulled my bandana from my pocket and wrapped it carefully around her. She was trembling, crying softly. That was when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned slowly. The man who had been standing on the road was now walking toward us, unhurried, as if he had all the time in the world. I stood up. My hand went straight to the knife at my belt. Stay where you are, I warned, my voice low and steady. He stopped. He smiled, a twisted, cold smile. She's mine, he said, as if he were talking about an object. No more. Silence fell between us, heavy, dangerous. He took another step. So did I? I said stay where you are. The man looked at the woman on the ground, then at me. Without another word, he spat on the ground, turned around, and walked back the way he had come, disappearing down the road. I breathed deeply. My heart was hammering in my chest. I looked at the woman. She stared back at me, her eyes filled with fear and gratitude at the same time. Who are you? She asked in a weak voice. Just a rancher, I replied. But today I arrived in time. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt that my life had meaning again. The rope that had nearly killed her lay on the ground. She couldn't stand. She tried twice, pressing her trembling hands into the dirt, but her legs wouldn't obey. Her entire body was battered, bruised, purple, bleeding in several places. Her knees were scraped raw, her elbows torn open, her face cut by stones and branches. Easy, I asked, crouching beside her again. Don't force yourself. He dragged you almost half a kilometer. She looked at me with those frightened eyes, still unable to believe she was alive. Her breathing was fast and shallow, like someone who had just escaped drowning. He tied my hand to the saddle, she said, her voice weak and broken. He hit the horse and let it go. He wanted me to die. Something clenched in my chest. Rage, disgust, but also something I hadn't felt in a very long time. The urge to protect. He won't touch you again, I assured her, looking her straight in the eyes. As long as I'm breathing, he won't come near you. She nodded slowly, still trembling. It wasn't just the injured body. It was the fear, the kind that seeps into your bones and doesn't leave easily. I looked around. The road was deserted. The sun burned mercilessly. There was no shade, no water nearby, and the woman needed urgent care or her wounds would become infected. Can you ride? I asked. She looked at Trueno, then at me, and shook her head. No, I can't even stand. I thought fast. My ranch was about 3 kilometers from there, not far, but on foot. Carrying her, it would be impossible, and leaving her there alone was unthinkable. That man could come back. All right, I'm going to lift you and put you on the saddle. You just have to hold on to me. I'll take us there. Before she could answer, I slid one arm behind her back and the other under her knees. She was light, too thin, as if she hadn't eaten properly in a long time. She let out a low groan of pain when I lifted her, but she didn't complain. She clung to my shoulder, fingers digging in like someone holding on to life. I settled her carefully onto Trueno's saddle. She wobbled, but I held her steady until she found her balance. Then I mounted behind her, passing my arms on both sides to hold the reins. If you feel like you're going to fall, tell me, I said. She didn't answer. She just rested her head against my chest, exhausted. I urged Trueno forward slowly. He couldn't run. Every jolt of the dirt road made her moan in pain. I felt her body trembling against mine. I smelled sweat, blood, and fear. And I felt something strange inside me, a sense of responsibility, as if I suddenly had a purpose again. For 3 years I had only survived. I woke up, worked, ate, slept, and repeated. The ranch functioned because I made it function, but there was no life in it, no meaning. Just motion, just time passing. But there, with that woman in my arms, injured, terrified, depending on me, I felt human again. What's your name? I asked, breaking the silence. She took time to answer. Maybe she was still afraid. Maybe she didn't trust me. I couldn't blame her. She had just escaped a man who wanted her dead. Marina, she finally said in a low voice. My name is Marina. Marina, I repeated, letting the name settle on my tongue. I'm Augusto. I have a ranch just ahead. I'll take you there. I'll take care of you. She said nothing, just nodded faintly, eyes closed. We continued in silence. The sun stayed high, scorching. Dust rose with every step of Trueno. The wind blew softly, carrying the smell of dry grass and hot earth. In the distance, blue mountains traced the horizon, still and eternal. I thought about the man who had left Marina to die, the cold way he stood there watching the horse drag her, the twisted smile when he said she was his. Who does that? Who ties a person to a horse and drives it into a frenzy? Anger surged again, but I pushed it down. Anger was useless now. What mattered was caring. What mattered was saving. I had arrived just in time. A few seconds more, and she would have been dead. The horse might have stumbled. She might have hit her head on a stone. Or her body might simply have given up. But I arrived. I don't know if it was luck. I don't know if it was fate. But I arrived, and that had to mean something. When I spotted the ranch entrance, a strange relief washed over me. As if I were bringing someone home. Not a stranger, but someone who mattered. I passed through the gate and climbed the slow slope to the house. It was a simple place. Old wood, tiled roof, a front porch with 2 dusty chairs no one used anymore. It had once been beautiful when Elena was alive. When we laughed on the porch, drank coffee together, made plans. Now it was just an empty, silent house. But today, for the first time in 3 years, there would be someone else inside besides me. I stopped Trueno in front of the house and dismounted carefully. Marina was nearly unconscious, her head lolling to the side. I caught her before she fell and lifted her into my arms again. Hold on a little longer, I asked her. We're here. I climbed the 3 porch steps and pushed the door open with my shoulder. The house was dark and cool, smelling of closed spaces and loneliness. I carried Marina to the bedroom that had once been mine and Elena's. The bed was made, clean sheets I changed every week more out of habit than need. I laid her down gently. She groaned softly and opened her eyes. Where am I? She asked, confused. In my house. You're safe here. I went to the kitchen, found the tin bowl, filled it with clean water from the clay filter, grabbed an old cloth and some soap, and returned to the room. Marina was awake, but very still, staring at the ceiling with empty eyes, as if she still couldn't believe she had survived. I'm going to clean your wounds, I told her. It'll hurt a little. She didn't answer, just turned her head to the side and let me. I wet the cloth and started with the cuts on her face. She flinched when the water touched her damaged skin, but she didn't complain. I cleaned slowly, carefully. The dried blood came away little by little, revealing deep cuts, bruises, swelling. Who was that man? I asked without lifting my eyes from my work. Marina closed her eyes. A tear slid from the corner. My husband. The word fell heavy in the air. Subscribe and activate the notifications button to continue the second part. Support us with a like.